most of us would probably agree that having some form of insurance is important. Here in Singapore, we already get basic coverage through national schemes like MediShield Life, and that's for hospital bills. We also have CareShield Life, and that helps with long-term care if we ever need it. On top of that, many of us also buy extra plans, things like life insurance to make sure our family is taken care of if we are not around, or critical illness insurance that gives a payout if we are diagnosed with something serious. But that brings us to today's question. So if we already have all of these different types of insurance, then do we really need a personal accident plan too? So today we have with us Timothy from Dollars and Cents podcast team to explore this topic. So team, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Insurance is a topic that I think is always very important, but I just want to make it very clear, I'm not a financial advisor. So whatever I share today is really just based on my own understanding and of course my own experience.
And before we start, I have a message from our sponsor for this episode, OCBC. Accidents happen, but your finances don't have to take the heat. My Great PA Plan by OCBC offers medical reimbursements of up to $1,000 for every accident and $500 for every specific sickness. What's more, get $1 million accidental death payout all for just 84 cents a day. Available only on the OCBC app.
Very nice. I think it's also interesting to note that it's just one of the few products I think that you can actually apply on your own as well. So, it's like buying travel insurance.
Okay, so we shall start our discussion proper.
Okay.
What are some of the issues that can happen to us and that may not be covered by our life or critical illness plan or insurance? So maybe you can share with us what could they look like?
I think they are like the most essential insurance in my opinion, because life insurance protects your family in the case that you're no longer around. And critical illness is a very bad thing. And, obviously if someone has critical illness, they also need a payout as well, right? But I think there are also a lot of things, unfortunately, in life that can happen to us that doesn't result in death or critical illness.
Correct.
And one of those things I can just think of is like just falling down when you're cycling. Like my wife, I think a few years ago, she cycles quite often, and then she was cycling back and she fell down, and I think she was quite badly injured. I think she might have fractured her arm or something like that as well. It is one of those things where the accident is unintentional. It's quite serious, but it doesn't require you to be hospitalized.
Correct.
But you still need to go to the A&E and get yourself checked. And I think this is one of those things which a personal accident plan will cover.
Correct.
I think other things that I've been hearing recently, I don't know if it happens to you, but nowadays a lot of people have played pickleball.
Yeah.
So I've been reading news, and I know this is quite common also because I know people who play pickleball or badminton who somehow get injured quite often. I think it's just one of those sports where it's like you play for leisure, right? So the people who are playing badminton, they're not like professional badminton players.
To do that,
Right? So it's quite common that they injure their wrist, or if you're playing tennis or football. So these are some of the things where you can get injured, but it's not really life or death matter. It's not CI, and then personal accident plan covers them.
Understand. So, for such scenarios where, let's say we are injured but we're not hospitalized and we can't utilize some of the other plans that we have, so how will PA plan then help us? The personal accident plan, how can it help us?
Let's say you fell down the stairs, and then you go to the hospital because you think you fractured your elbow or something, right? Usually you go to an A&E, right? And then A&E, there's always going to be some costs incurred, right? Because you see, I think it's a few $100s, right? And you may not need hospitalization. I think quite often people who like fracture their arm, they spend a day in the A&E. But after that, once they're bandaged up and everything, they should be able to go back home if it's not too serious an injury.
Correct.
Right?
So no need for overnight stay.
No need for overnight stay, thankfully, but you will still incur medical expenses.
Correct.
The A&E costs, for example, that will be a few $100s. You might also get a follow-up treatment as well, medication as well as follow-up visits to the doctor. And with a PA plan, what we get is medical reimbursement. So for example, the My Great PA plan from OCBC, there's a reimbursement of up to $1,000 for each accident, right?
Wow.
So that really helps cover the A&E cost, basically the outpatient treatment, as well as the follow-up treatment. This is $1,000 per accident, and it's on a reimbursement basis.
Let's say there are accidents that are maybe more serious and we actually require hospitalization. So for these more serious accidents, right, do you have any examples to share or...
I have an example. So it's not my own example, thankfully. Dinesh from our Dollars and Cents editorial team as well. He's not here today. A few years ago, I remember, and I shouldn't laugh because, it was...
It's serious.
Yeah, it's serious, right? But this was during the COVID year, so we were all working from home, having our huddle. And then I think, if I'm not wrong, Dinesh suddenly texted in the morning that he has to be warded to the hospital.
Oh no.
Right? And so what happened, and it's so funny, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be laughing, but Dinesh, I'm so sorry if you see this.
Yeah, Dinesh. For laughing.
So he actually brought his kid to the polyclinic for vaccination. And on the way out of the polyclinic, it was raining, so he's holding his child, and he fell down the stairs.
Oh no.
And then luckily he held his kid properly, so his kid is fine. But he actually, I think he dislocated his elbow or something.
Oh no.
And I think he bumped his head. So he walked out of the polyclinic, fell down, immediately went into the polyclinic again. They asked him to go to the A&E, to the hospital. So he went there, right? Thankfully, it wasn't as serious as it could have been, but he had to be hospitalized for 1 day. But I think 1 or 2 days, he came out already, right? So I think if you have a PA plan, then of course your hospital expenses will be covered through the reimbursements. I think you also get a cash payout for each day in the hospital, as well, $200 a day for hospitalization. So I think that's quite important, because one of the things that can happen is that even when you're hospitalized and you have your MediShield Life or your private integrated shield plan, there's still a co-payment requirement as well. So it could be 10% of the bill. All right. So for example, if you stay for a few days and it's $3,000, 10% could be $300.
Not to encourage people to go, but at least, let's say, touch wood, you are really hospitalized, you get a peace of mind, you get to have some of your expenses covered.
Correct.
Right. And I hope our audience will be able to relate, but I feel usually for accidents, right, it comes with injury. Could be you strain your arms or legs. So I think there would be usually physiotherapy involved. So I wanted to ask, if let's say I undergo physiotherapy treatment, right, for an accidental injury, will my expenses be covered?
A lot of people buy a PA plan precisely because they are worried that they might be hospitalized and at least there's a cash payout for each day of hospitalizations. But I think a lot of people also buy a PA plan for injuries that maybe require physiotherapy, right? So for example, again, using an example of my wife, right? So I think earlier this year, she was in the gym, right? So she was, I think, deadlifting or something. And for all you gym goers, you guys know, right? If you do stuff like deadlift, it's pretty common to get an injury. All these injuries can lead to, back injury that might require physio. And I think physiotherapy is one of those things that's also covered in terms of medical reimbursement. So you get up to $1,000 in medical expense reimbursement for each accident. So that is also pretty useful to have, because physiotherapy obviously will not be covered typically by your hospitalization plans. And obviously, even if you buy life insurance or critical illness, it doesn't cover for that.
Correct.
So I think this is where personal accident plan kind of bridge the gap between things which are really essential, like your life and critical illness plans, as well as your hospitalization plans.
How much should we consider such out-of-pocket expenses after hospitalization when we are considering whether to buy a personal accident plan or not?
I think when you look at out-of-pocket expenses, I mean, I have been to the hospital a few times, not for myself, but for my kids.
Dinesh.
If you just assume a 10% co-payment, right? When you are hospitalized for a few days, depending on which class ward you are in, assuming you have a private integrated shield plan, so you opt for a class A ward, for example, because since you already paid for the insurance coverage, you would probably want private hospital or class A ward.
Correct.
Then the chances are that the bill will be higher. And for a few days hospital stay, depending on what exactly you are in for, it could easily be a few $1,000s. Right? So if you think of 10% of a few $1,000s,
Correct.
even though it's largely covered, a few $100s is still
painful for some, right?
Yeah, it's still significant, and not ideally, the kind of costs that you want to be thinking about when you are going to the hospital,
injured,
right? Especially when you don't know how many days you'll be, because the anxiety, right? Because you don't know whether it's a 2-day stay or it could be a 1-week stay, right? So I think just having that peace of mind, knowing that for each day you are in the hospital, there is a cash pay of $200, helps you to feel assured that any out-of-pocket expenses can be covered.
Yeah, because more often than not, we usually don't just see the doctor once. Let's say it's a more serious injury, but it doesn't require hospitalization. You might need to to go for physio for a few times, for example. Yeah. So PA plan can also offer coverage against specific sicknesses. For example, I think like food poisoning, dengue, hand, foot, mouth disease. Yeah, those that we have heard of. Okay.
Unfortunately, pretty common.
Really? So actually, how common are they?
Oh, it's so common. Oh my gosh. Like every other parent I know seems to, if you have kids, HFMD is pretty common. Just to be clear, this OCBC Migrate PA plan is only covered Singapore citizens and PR between the age of 19 and 55.
Oh, okay.
So this is for adults. So I didn't realize, even as an adult, you can get hand, foot, mouth disease. I didn't realize until my brother got it. So my brother has 5 kids. I think this was earlier this year, I think Chinese New Year period. He texted us before Chinese New Year saying that, it looks like he can't visit us because 1 or 2 of his kids had HFMD. And within a week, everyone in the family, including the adults, got HFMD. And apparently, it's worse for adults actually. Food poisoning, which I think, and everyone watching it will probably got it at one point in time of their life, unfortunately. Dengue fever happens as well, depending on the time of the year. And Zika virus, I think a little bit less common, but still happens. And these are all specific sickness that do happen, and a PA plan can cover it as well. The things we're talking about, chiropractor, TCM, physiotherapy, hand, foot, mouth disease, unfortunately staying in the hospital for a few days, are all things which, nobody hopes happens to them.
Right.
But the truth is, you probably know someone in your family or someone who has experienced one of these things in the last couple of years.
I think that's the thing about insurance.
I think for you also, right? You go for TCM.
I do. I go for a TCM quite a bit.
And
because
you claim from your PA plan?
Yes, I did. So last time I was
awesome.
I was mentioning like how I only started out with the hospitalization and then CI plan, right? So eventually, because I got so prone to injuries that my friends were telling me I should get a personal accident plan so that when I go TCM, it can be claimed, right?
So when you went for your TCM, right? How much was it? Just curious.
Wow. Usually, I think
It's quite
TCM
expensive.
is a few $100s.
Oh my gosh. Well, like one treatment.
Yeah, one treatment can be at least $100. And then sometimes they might prescribe you medicines.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to top up for that. So there's consultation fee, treatment fee, and also like the medicine fee.
Right. So I think some people, they get an injury and you go see the GP and they get a referral to a physio, right?
Yeah.
I think there is just a human nature where if you have a PA plan, the chances of you going for the physio is higher because you can get reimbursement anyway, right? You already paid for the PA plan. Now that you got the injury, you have to see the physio, you may as well go for it and get your medical expenses claimed, right?
Correct.
Whereas I think for some people without the PA plan, right, they might actually think, I don't need to spend that few $100s to see the TCM or the physio because, you just want to save money, right? So I think sometimes having the insurance plan also affects your decision on whether or not to go with follow-up treatment. Because as we can see, right, like it's not like essential treatment.
Correct.
If you get what I mean.
The thought of having to go for these treatments and like multiple sessions particularly might deter some people because of the expenses incurred. So I think that is how PA plan will come in very handy, because with PA plan, if it's covered, then like you mentioned, I think people will be more inclined to really get themselves treated properly. So I feel like this is the thing about insurance. It's like sometimes you might not see the need now, but it's just having the peace of mind that when things happen, it can come into play and then you can, you don't feel as stressed. There's not much anxiety, so you can focus on recovering. So actually, I also wanted to ask, what other coverage, cover quite a bit, but what other coverage does a PA plan offer?
Most PA plan do cover will be accidental death as well, right? For example, traffic accident, right, that leads to death is an accidental death, and there is a payout with Migrate PA plan is $1 million. So that's a lot of money. Just to be clear, right, this is kind of different from so we talked about like life insurance earlier. Right? I think we have to be clear so that this death payout of $1 million, it doesn't just pay out if the insured person pass on from, illnesses or just old age, right? So it's really for accidental death. So it doesn't really overlap with, in my opinion, it doesn't overlap with your life insurance coverage.
I see.
So we shouldn't think of it as, because I got the PA plan and it covers accidental death for $1 million, I don't need my life insurance.
So the cause of the death will determine what will be activated in this way. Like, so it has to be accidental, then we can use this PA plan.
Which is why I think a lot of people, when they start working like yourself, right, like life insurance and critical illness are usually the essential coverage that they want to be covered for. And then, so those covers the chunk of the really bad things that can happen, right? And then the accident plan kind of covers the unfortunate things that do happen as well, right?
I think it bridges the gap.
It bridges the gap, right? So stuff like food poisoning and falling down the stairs or playing badminton and getting injured. They are not life and death matters, but they are still injuries that do happen regularly. And the accident plan kind of is the bridge to cover some of these injuries which do happen.
Somehow injuries and these accidents happen more often than we thought it would.
It does.
Yeah, right?
I think my experience is that it seems to happen more as you grow older. Right? Like, so when we are in I'm not saying that it doesn't happen to you in your early 20s, but somehow I think when we're younger, we are less prone to accident. And then as we grow older, like falling down the stairs or having to see the physio, for an injury because, we gym regularly and we get injured, just seems to happen more often. I guess that's why, for this plan specifically, it only covers people from between the age of 19 and 55.
I see.
So I think statistically they know that, as you grow in your 60s and above, the chances of a claim is higher.
I fully agree. So we actually talked about some of the key points and benefit, and honestly, I feel like personal accident plans can make sense for many people. If you think about it, we actually cover young working adults who are always on the go. We also have friends who might play sports or hit the gyms, be it weekends, weekdays. We also cover frequent travelers. So because one bad accident could mean medical bills you didn't plan for, and a personal accident plan will help you with that. It covers accidents big or small, and some plans even cover treatments like TCM or physiotherapy. So basically, it lets you focus on recovering instead of worrying about how to pay for it. And if something very serious happens, it also gives your loved one financial protections through accidental death coverage. So what is the best part of it all? It's very, very easy and convenient for you to get. So there's no medical checkup or underwriting. It takes less than 10 minutes to sign up for My Great PA plan on the OCBC app, or you can check out more details on the OCBC website. We will leave the link in the show notes below. So once again, thank you very much, team, for joining us today and for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are now going to check whether they have PA coverage and what they can claim for.
Yes, everybody should. It's very beneficial. So if you like this episode, don't forget to follow us on YouTube or Spotify. Wherever you are watching or listening to this, we'll see you again.